Just a quick reminder before we get into the lesson to download the hands-on lab exercises that accompany this complete CCNA course. I'll include the link in the description. Also remember to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you don't miss any of the lessons in the course. Okay, let's get into it. In the last lecture, you learned about the traditional deployment models of on-premises and colo or co-location facilities. In this lecture, I'll explain what cloud computing is and compare it with the traditional deployment models. So there's a lot of confusion about exactly what cloud computing is. Beginners tend to describe it as IT services which are located somewhere else. I mean, somewhere else is just some vague notion that it's not inside the company building. But colo facilities are off premises and they're not cloud. And private cloud deployments are often on premises. So that definition really doesn't work. We need a better one. And there is a de facto definition of what cloud computing is. It comes from the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So they came up with this definition in 2011. Cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, for example, network, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. Okay, I didn't say it was a very clear-cut definition, but that is the standard definition of what cloud computing is. Luckily, in the same document that the NIST released this definition, they also specified the characteristics of cloud computing, and they really nailed down what cloud computing is. But just like the definition is long, there's more than one characteristic that really defines cloud computing. The first one is on-demand self-service. Again, from the NIST, a consumer can unilaterally provision computing capabilities such as server time and network storage as needed automatically without requiring human interaction with each service provider. So this is very different than what you see with an on-premises or a colo solution. With those traditional solutions, whenever a department wants a new server, they raise a ticket, a request with the IT department, and then we go through that long process that I described in the last lecture about ordering the server, getting it racked up, getting it cabled. The network, the server, and the storage team then have to configure everything before the server goes live. With cloud computing, there's on-demand self-service, where it does not require individuals in the IT teams to put this thing together. Normally, it will use a really convenient GUI front end, a web-based tool that users, whether it's another company or maybe an internal department, if you're doing private cloud, can provision their own services such as servers. And in the next lecture, I'll give you an example of that working. The next characteristic is rapid elasticity. Capabilities can be elastically provisioned and released, in some cases automatically, to scale rapidly outward and inward, commensurate with demand. To the consumer, the capabilities available for provisioning often appear to be unlimited and can be appropriated in any quantity at any time. So what elasticity is, you can think of it like an elastic band where you can pull it apart and then it will stretch back again as well. With elasticity, you can provision the amount of resources that you require very quickly. You can very quickly scale out when you need more, and you can very quickly scale back in when you need less, and you only pay for what you're using at the time. Next one is broad network access. So the first two characteristics, really, they're characteristics of cloud, and it's very hard to do that with an on-premises or a colo solution. The broad network access, really, this applies to on-premises and colo as well normally. But for a service to be classified as a cloud service, it also has to meet this characteristic. With the characteristics, it's not a case of a cloud service just has to meet one of those. A cloud service has to meet all of these characteristics. So broad network access, the capabilities are available over the network and accessed through standard mechanisms that promote use by heterogeneous, thicker thin client platforms like mobile phones, tablets, laptops, and workstations. With a cloud service, it should be able to be accessed from anywhere, from the company's offices or from anywhere out on the internet as well, and from a variety of different clients. Next one is resource pooling. The provider's computing resources are pooled to serve multiple consumers using a multi-tenant model with different physical and virtual resources dynamically assigned and reassigned according to consumer demand. So with cloud services, every customer or every internal department does not have their own separate dedicated hardware. The hardware is shared, and this brings the costs down because there's shared hardware. You don't have to buy separate hardware for everybody that is using it. Usually it will be virtualized, and in a later lecture in this section, I'll show you how the virtualization works. Next one is measured service. Cloud systems automatically control and optimize resource use by leveraging a metering capability at some level of abstraction appropriate to the type of service. For example, storage, processing, bandwidth, and active user accounts. With a cloud service, it's always going to be an operational expenditure. It's going to be a recurring monthly fee. And the cloud provider needs some way of measuring how much of it you're using as a customer so that they can bill you accordingly. Okay, that was it. That was all of the characteristics that made up a cloud service. In the next lecture, I will show you an example of actually provisioning some services in the cloud, and you'll see these characteristics in action. See you there. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to get the complete course ad-free right now, then you can enroll in my CCNA Gold Bootcamp by clicking the link above my head or in the description. It also includes full study notes, quizzes, and 150 pages of additional troubleshooting labs you can't find anywhere else.